What's going on, everybody? I am Matthew G, joined by Cody Cold Gaming and a special guest, JP Acosta. How you doing today, man? Appreciate you coming on.
Doing great. Thank you guys for having me on. It's always fun when I get to go on podcasts and talk about my favorite team. So I'm excited.
Everybody's favorite team. I'd like to say
Right.
America's favorite team, but I think we're close to earning that. But today, like I said, we have special guest JP on today. A little bit about JP. He is a football writer at SB Nation who covers both NCAA and professional football Jaguars. Prior to SB Nation, he wrote for Football Outsiders and SB Nation's Big Cat Country. Acosta has a master's degree in sports media from Northwestern University and a bachelor's degree in multimedia studies from Florida Atlantic University. Big tier list guy. Everything is pro wrestling. We kind of talked about that a little bit before the show, but let's talk a little bit about your love for pro wrestling. Where to begin?
Yeah. Started when I was a kid. I remember hanging out with my friends, hanging out with my cousins, and we'd always pretend to be pro wrestlers. That ended around when I was like 8, when my cousin tried to do the RVD frog splash, landed on my knee. My mom was like, yeah, no more pro wrestling for anybody in this house. But then got back around to it when I was older, and I've just continued to watch to this day. It's it's super fun, and it's fun when you understand how goofy it is. And that's probably the best part.
Yeah, that's a similar story, dude. I had a lot of childhood injuries for no reason in the backyard because of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel you on that. That's crazy.
Funny, I actually was watching my TikTok today, and for some reason, I don't really follow wrestling, but there was a video of these two kids that were at the beach, just doing all these different wrestling moves, and it brought me back to when I was a kid, and I used to watch it a lot. Like DDP, right? What did he do? The
diamond cutter. Yeah, the diamond cutter.
And then the Sweet Chin Music. Who did that one?
Shawn Michaels. Yeah.
Shawn Michaels. Yeah. So they were doing a bunch of those, and it was pretty funny. It brought me back to my old school. But
so they were kicking each other in the face.
I mean, they were pretty good. I mean, it was all about camera angle, right? And they didn't actually hit them in the face, but
all right.
But it was a lot of fun. Who's the current champion?
So Roman Reigns is the Universal Champion, or like undisputed champion, and then Seth Rollins is the heavyweight champion on the other show.
And have they been holding it for a couple years now, or
Roman's been holding it for I think 3 years now?
Oh, dang.
And Rollins just won it maybe like 6 months ago, maybe.
Oh, dang! Hot and fresh out the kitchen. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So FAU, do you follow FAU football at all?
Yeah, I follow now. Not as intensely as I did when I was an undergrad covering the team, but I still follow along, try and keep up because, of course, it's also part of my job to cover college football. So any chance that I get to slide a little bit of homerism in there, I have to.
Okay. So how do you feel about Willie Taggart? I know he's not there anymore, but I'm a Florida State fan, and so we had him. I think we were still paying him while he was coaching your team.
I mean, he's obviously a great dude, obviously good recruiter. I think a lot of the guys that are on the team now were kind of the main guys who are going to be producing a lot of the yards, a lot of the numbers, a lot of the talent on this team now are Willie Taggart guys. He gave them a great base. But when it came to the managerial, the down-to-downs management of the team, it really it kind of faltered over the last couple of years. He came in during a really rough time. He was named the coach right during the pandemic, and to be able to do the recruiting job that he did was really good during the pandemic. But like I said, it just came down that he wasn't good enough of a managerial coach, and the wheels just fell off immediately.
I think that happened at Florida State too. Like like you said, he's a good dude. He got along with the players very well, but like establishing a culture was, I think, difficult for him. But I think he does fine with the X's and O's. He should have stayed at Oregon. Should have stayed there.
Taking it right after Jimbo, whatever, after they got all this championships and stuff like that. Yeah, it's like, what do you do with that?
Yeah,
I mean, if you're not up to that level already or whatever, it was a weird hire to begin with for me. Like, I mean, I understood it just to get somebody in there, whatever, the X's and O's kind of guy, to take that talent that Jimbo had or whatever and do something with it. I mean, it was still an exciting team to watch.
Yeah.
But it was just like, they weren't going to hit that ceiling again. It didn't seem like, and that's what happened. So,
yeah. And I also think at Florida State, there were a lot of problems that they've kind of solved now to the point where, they're probably one of the best teams in the country this year.
Right.
It's
Go Noles.
They actually wanted to spend money this time around. And when Willie got there, they did not want to spend money. They wanted to get all the best assistants, all the best facilities without actually spending money on said facilities. And you got to spend big if you want to be one of the big name programs like Florida State wants to be. If you want to do that but don't want to spend the money, you're going to end up looking like what Florida State did over the past previous years until year 2, I believe. I think it was year 2 in Norvell last year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's looking good for the Noles now. Now they actually want to spend money.
Yeah, and that's why Jimbo left, is because he said, "Hey, I need this, I need this, I need this," and Florida State's like, "Nah, you're good. We're not going to give you the money that you need." Also, Texas A&M just gave him an absurd amount of money that, I don't fault the guy for leaving. I would have left myself, but Willie Taggart, he also left some stuff in shambles as well behind him that Willie Taggart inherited, but still, I think Willie wasn't the right hire. I think the coach we have now is a good hire, but I like seeing what Primetime's doing with Colorado. I would have been happy with a hire, I think, too, but we'll see. We'll see.
Welcome to Noles chat, everybody.
Sorry.
Always got to talk about the Noles. It's always time to talk about the Noles.
And sorry, again, this was just looking up your biography before you joined us. I was looking at FAU's history of head coaches. It's the weirdest thing. Like it's not like they're getting any Joe Schmo, like Lane Kiffin, Willie Taggart, Tom Herman. I mean, those are names.
Yeah, I think it kind of sparked from it's kind of sparked from Lane Kiffin going to 2 conference titles in 3 years. It kind of gave them a little bit of a good rep where coaches can be like, hey, you come down to FAU for 3 years, 4 years tops. You turn this program, you come in, win a couple conference titles, you get some guys into the NFL, you're going to be the next big name to come up from the G5. Or if you were a P5 coordinator who wanted their first head coaching job, you go down to FAU, you get yourself acquainted, and then next thing you know, you're coaching Ole Miss or something, or you're coaching the next big P5 opening because of how good you did with recruiting, how good you did with the talent that you have at Florida Atlantic, it's a very ample recruiting pool at Florida Atlantic. You're in the middle of South Florida. You're in the middle of Florida, basically. You're now in the AAC. You have a lot of opportunities to both do well in recruiting and do well in the AAC. So my hopes are high for Tom Herman. I don't think it's going to be like they're going to go 11-1 or 12-0 in the first year, Tom Herman, but I do think they're going to be better than people expect this year.
And talking about money, University of Miami, the U upside down. I'm a Knowles fan, so I gotta do that. But their team that has the potential to be great, but kind of like the Knowles from years ago, they just don't want to spend the money, which is crazy to me.
See, I think it's the other way around. I think they want to spend the money. I think they've shown they can spend the money. The first year of Mario Cristobal, it's just bad. It was not good at all. They have the talent. Mario Cristobal is a fantastic recruiter. They've brought in the talent. Leonard Taylor's probably going to be a first-round draft pick next year. The coordinator hires were just not great. Kevin Steele didn't do very well. Josh Gaddis, his first year outside of Michigan, wasn't that great. It's going to be a very interesting year for them because they have all the talent in the world. It's just Mario Cristobal just got to figure it out as a coach, not as a recruiter, but in the managerial down-to-down aspects of the game.
I feel like they can get away with stuff like that, right? Like
wasn't
those big name colleges. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go.
Yeah, I just feel like they can get away with stuff like that at this big name colleges, like you say, because they're in fertile land. They have all this talent on the field, and they're like, oh, they got something here, or whatever. I mean, it's the same thing with like Mark Rick at Georgia, for instance. Like he could skate on that for so long just because the talent pool, like in South Florida, in Georgia, whatever, is so immense to go to those colleges and stuff. You know, they don't really like call his coaching job in question until like, you know, he hasn't hit those pinnacles. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's always like strange to me because it's like bro, like, you know, you get somebody in here with a decent you know, head coaching background or whatever, and they could do something like amazing with these football teams, and we've seen it before in like the 90s, you know, the early 2000s and all that stuff. And especially down there, I don't understand why that drop off was like so far for the U. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Well, I think it has to do with a lot of compounding factors. I think Alabama and Georgia both being very, very good, and then coming into South Florida and taking all of the best athletes, like guys like Jerry Jeudy, Amari Cooper. Those guys are from the South Florida area. They're going in, and basically the biggest thing about what Miami did during the 90s, early 2000s, Howard Schnellenberger said it best, is the little fence that they would put up in Miami-Dade County. That was going. Everybody who grew up there would probably play for the Hurricanes if you were good at football. That doesn't happen anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so the drop off in recruiting there for Miami, as well as just they couldn't figure it out at the head coaching spot. And it kind of sucks. But when you're bad on the field, it's going to reflect in recruiting. And if you're bad on recruiting, it's going to reflect on the field. So it's just a whole bunch of compounding factors. I think they're getting better at recruiting. It's just they got to get the coaching. Mario Cristobal's got to figure it out.
That's the same thing we were saying at Georgia, because it was like Cam Newton went over to Auburn, Trevor Lawrence went up to Clemson. Yeah. You know, it was like if you lock down the state or whatever, the talent was there for y'all to make a run, but it was like, you know, that didn't really happen all the way up until Kirby got in there.
Yeah, and it's going to get even more crazy with this NIL going on, and then the conference realignment. Just it's a fun time to be a college football fan. Just unprecedented things going on. So let's move on to why we're all here, right? We're here to talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars, the AFC South Division champion Jacksonville Jaguars. So we're now 2.5 weeks into training camp. What are your thoughts, JP, as far as what's come out of training camp?
So the first thought is Calvin Ridley is everything that we thought he would be and more. From early reports, from guys like Demetrius Harvey, from John Shipley, Calvin Ridley has been the best player at camp. And that's what you expect from a guy who was very, very good at football before sitting out. I think what Calvin Ridley brings to this offense, that what they didn't have last year, is someone who can create easy separation by themselves in the 10 to 15 yard range. That's where the Jaguars predominantly operate in their offense. They're going to be brutally efficient, not as uber explosive as teams like the Bills or the Bengals downfield, but they're going to destroy teams in the intermediate areas of the field. And of course, having a great schemer and play caller like Doug Peterson, he will scheme guys open. But it also helps, like when you have a guy like in basketball, you can scheme everybody open, but it helps when you have a guy who can get his own bucket. That's what Calvin Ridley can do. Calvin Ridley can go get his own bucket, can create separation. When you have a quarterback like Trevor Lawrence, that connection is going to automatically lift the entire offense. So I'm really excited to see what Calvin Ridley looks like in game speed. And then the next thing that I was very intrigued by is the Antonio Johnson usage. I think getting him on day 3 was kind of a steal because of how big and how athletic, how talented Antonio Johnson is. One of the problems for the Jaguars last year was they couldn't cover tight ends. I mean, of course, we all remember the divisional playoff game. They could not cover Travis Kelce. Even in week 10, when they went to Kansas City, they could not cover Travis Kelce. They had trouble guarding tight ends all year. Antonio Johnson is might be that guy. You know, he's going to be the nickel who can defend the run and cover tight ends. He's that good of an athlete. He's also 6'2", 6'3", so you're not putting a smaller guy like a Trey Herndon in the nickel where Travis Kelce or other tight ends can just big body him. So they really need to figure out that spot personnel-wise. Outside of that, it's just you have to see growth from the second-year guys like Trevon Walker, like Devin Lloyd, who has been tearing up camp as far as reports that I've seen. Devin Lloyd's been playing very well, like Chad Muma on defense. You need to see growth from those guys in order to insulate that defense, because Mike Caldwell, because that defensive scheme relies so much on those linebackers to kind of hold everything together with how aggressive they are on defense. You need Devin Lloyd to play well. That is your big chess piece. Foye Oluokun played fantastic last year, but he was covering up a lot of mistakes by the rookies. And that's, of course, playing linebacker in the NFL is hard. And being a rookie in the NFL as a linebacker is even harder. So I really hope to see more development from Devin Lloyd, from Trevon Walker going into this year.
Yeah, like the first round of the draft, a lot of Jaguar fans were saying, pick Brian Branch or JPJ. And then we get Antonio Johnson on the back end. I'm like, well, that's covered. You know what I mean? It just feels right. Not only because, like, as fans, we were saying this before it actually happened. We were like, he could drop down to the nickel. And then Dewey comes over, on the sidelines and talks to Hacker a couple of, I think it was probably, yesterday or the day before. And he mentions that, like, he's not only good like in the safety position, but he's good at the nickel too. So I feel like having him, like, getting that position slotted up, whatever, was like something that a lot of Jaguar fans were talking about needed to happen. And it was like clockwork. It was weird. It was like fans say it, then it happens. So I thought that was really cool. Especially like, cause getting Anton Harrison in the first round with our Cam Robinson issues, that needed to be slotted up as well. So, like, I mean, the more I look back into the draft, I'm like, dude, they killed it.
Yeah, and especially with with what the Jaguars struggled with on offense last year, a lot of draft picks make a lot of sense. The Jaguars were very good between the 20s on offense. They were not good in the red zone. That was a struggle even during the preseason last year. When you look at DVOA, they were 22nd in the NFL in red zone rushes. So that's got to change for a team with the aspirations like the Jaguars. You have to be more efficient in the red zone. You can't settle for field goals anymore. So going out and getting a guy like Anton Harrison, who is a very athletic, very good run blocker, and I don't think he's super young. He's super young. He's probably gonna start at right tackle. And then going out and getting Brenton Strange, who is going to be either a red zone target or a red zone run blocker. It forces teams into 12. It forces defenses when you go into 12 personnel with Ingram and Strange on the field at the same time. You can't go base defense, because then you're having Evan Ingram on one of your slower linebackers. That's a win for Evan Ingram 9 times out of 10. But you can't go nickel because they can run the ball out of that. They can run the ball against that. And I think adding Tank Bigsby is going to be the biggest thing in the red zone, because Tank Bigsby, what he does, he's very much a runner like his name, Tank. He is going to go forward. He is so good at not taking negative yardage, and he's always falling forward. That's going to help in the red zone. As good as I think Travis Etienne is and is going to be, he had a lot of struggles with vision. It wasn't that he was not big enough as a running back. He just struggled with vision in the red zone and vision as a ball carrier. Tank Bigsby sees the hole and he goes. He's not going to dance. He's not going to wait around. He's going to go forward. So I think all the draft picks, offensive draft picks on the first 2 days, made sense and based on where they want to be as an offense and where they want to improve, which is in the short areas in the red zone.
Right. Yeah, one of the things that impressed me the most about Tank was watching his highlights, and that Auburn offensive line was not good. And seeing what he could do with that, I mean, it was insane. And now he's going to be behind, some veteran guys and some younger guys as well. But if they make the holes or whatever, he's taking it. Even if they don't make the holes, he's still figuring out how to get a good couple of yards or whatever. The dude's a playmaker. He had a 70-yard run in training camp. So, yeah, that's exciting for sure.
What I had heard them say on this Jaguar show the other day was that with Tank Bigsby, he he doesn't wiggle like you would think of like a wiggle running back. What he is he's efficient with his moves. It won't necessarily stand out very much, but if you look at the tape and the film, at least what they've seen in training camp, it's just these subtle little changes and movements that he does where he's able to create that separation when he's going between the tackles and then, hit that home run. But yeah, I'm pretty excited. I feel like it was definitely an interesting offseason with all the pickups that we've had, especially at running back. We picked up, what was his name? Dernis Johnston. And I thought we were fine with Etienne, Hasty, and Johnston, and they picked up Bixby. And so I feel like it's a running back room of riches. I feel like right now with obviously Snoop Connor on the outs now, which I still think that was a super odd pick last year. I think we picked him up in the 3rd round last year. Was it 3rd or 5th? Either way, people were saying he went way too high. It potentially could have just been picked up after the draft, but yeah, I like what you said about Calvin Ridley. Man, that's all anyone's ever been talking about was Calvin Ridley coming out of training camp. Now I know he had one bad day, but I mean you can't expect him to have a perfect day every day. Or we could, if we want to, we can go back to the days of D.D. Westbrook and that wide receiving core if we want to. I think what we've seen in training camp, or at least what they've said coming out of training camp, there's a lot to look forward to. I know they're saying that Zay Jones, if you had no idea about who the Jaguars were and you were just looking at practice, you would think Zay Jones was potentially the number 1 wide receiver along with Calvin Ridley. Not to say Christian Kirk isn't good. It just goes to show how good our wide receiving core has come. And like you said, in the years past, they just haven't been able to create that separation, where now we have Calvin Ridley who can create that separation. And with that, help create so much more opportunities for everyone else along the line. I wish there was more than one football to go around on each play.
Yeah, and I think this is probably the best wide receiver core that the Jaguars have ever had in their franchise. I don't think, of course, Jimmy Smith, Keenan Cardell, those are two of the best to ever.
But just the two, right?
In terms of overall depth and talent. And if we include Evan Ingram, then this is surely the best wide receiver room, pass catching room.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, it's the best pass catching room that the Jaguars have ever had. They're so versatile. They all play different roles, and they're all magnified. They're all amplified by the skills of Trevor Lawrence, which it's great to have a quarterback who is really, really good, who can elevate everybody else on the field, because that turns you from a good offense to a great one. And I think the Jaguars offense can be great this year.
Awesome. Well, talking about all that offense, and I know we're super excited about it, but let's talk a little bit about the defense. What are your thoughts? I know Tyson Campbell's been out for most of training camp with, I think it was the concussion protocol. He did go back to practice, I believe, yesterday, but practice was a much lighter practice compared to what they've been doing. But Tyson Campbell, I think, is one of our corner blocks on the defensive side, as far as someone that we can really rely on moving forward. What are your thoughts on the defense in training camp right now?
So I really want to see improvement in the pass rush. Of course, that's going to be the biggest. That's going to have the biggest. That's going to be under the microscope the most. When you spend the number 1 overall pick on an edge rusher, you want to see the pass rush. And I think Travon Walker was kind of miscast a little bit, having him stand up. But now they have him his hand in the dirt. I want to see if they can move him around a little bit more, especially because they're losing DeJuan Smoot for at least it's going to be a while until DeJuan Smoot comes back. They need someone else to bring that versatility. That's one of the biggest things that the Jaguars really did when their pass rush worked, was they were able to be versatile up front with guys like Arden Key, DeJuan Smoot, Travon Walker moving inside and outside. You need to replace or replicate that versatility. And so having Travon Walker, who can be that, is going to help, but he also has to win his one-on-ones as a pass rusher. I think Yasir Abdullah is a very intriguing guy. He's a little on the smaller side, but he just wins with speed. He is such a different caliber or dynamic of pass rusher than the Jaguars have. Like, everybody's all big, rocked up, strong. They were going to run with a long arm, going to rush with power. Yasir Abdullah is going to win with speed. And I want to see how that dynamic plays out in the Jaguars defensive line rotation. We've talked about Devin Lloyd, Chad Muma. I think, like I said, the linebacker core is arguably the most important part of this defense because of how much is asked of them to go sideline to sideline, to blitz. You have to cover everybody. They need this. They need to play very well this year next to Foye Olokun. And I'm hoping Devin Lloyd turns into who we thought he was going to be based on the first 3 weeks of the season. He hit that rookie wall really hard last year, but this year, this offseason, I've heard a lot of good things about him coming out of camp. So I'm hoping that helps kind of solidify the middle of that defense.
What are your thoughts on Caleb Chason? Do you think he can finally make that jump that everyone had been hoping for? I know that the coaches keep saying year in and year out that they're really high on him and they're really excited what he has to offer, but he seems to not being able to put it all together on the field. What are your thoughts?
I have my doubts. I just don't see it with him. I don't see it with him, man. I think he is a speed rusher who can't consistently win with speed or bend. He doesn't have a lot of bend. So he just tries to win with speed and burst off the first step, but he doesn't pair that with good hand technique. And he also doesn't have a lot of strength in the play strength. You can't play him on the run game in run downs. You can't play him on passing downs because he's a non-factor as a pass rusher. He's probably going to be fighting for a roster spot. He's going to be fighting a lot for playing time, especially even with DeJuan Smoot out. He's going to be fighting for rotational snaps. I don't see it yet.
Yeah, and if y'all don't know what he's talking about, there's an episode called The Hunt for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and there is a clip of Caleb losing that battle. and that stuck out in my mind so much that I was like, forgot what I was even watching. But yeah, his hand technique is he grabbed I think it was Blake Hance. He grabbed his jersey, pulled it all the way back till his whole jersey was up to his neck. And I was like, yeah, this is not looking good for Caleb, which is unfortunate.
It's tough. It's tough to see that, especially with the first round pick used on that. I hope the organization has finally learned their lesson that pipeline between Gainesville and Jacksonville is a horrible pipeline, and they need to just go ahead and close it off, at least within the first round.
I thought Caleb came from LSU, right?
He was LSU.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, he was with Joe Burr.
No, you're right. It was
CJ Henderson was the Florida pick.
CJ Henderson along with a bunch of others like
Dante Fowler.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, sorry. Let's see. So you were talking about Caleb Chason and him. It's funny, he doesn't have the full package. He doesn't have the speed and the strength. And if you don't have, like you said, if you don't have the hand technique, where are you left? Where Trevon Walker, he does have the strength. And so that bull rush will work for him. But once the league finds out, which I think they have, that all they got to do is, he doesn't have anything but his bull rush. And if that's all you have, being a one-trick pony doesn't work very well without the extras. Any thoughts on Trevon Walker? Do you think he makes that jump with adding tools to his kit?
I think he does. I think more than anything else, he needs a consistent pass rush plan. I think that was the thing coming out when he's coming out of Georgia. He didn't really have a plan as a pass rusher. Now that he's been in NFL for a year, now he's been with Brenton Buckner for a year and another offseason. Mm-hmm. I think developing a good pass rush plan is going to help him out a lot. I think he's kind of similar to a guy like Rashawn Gary in Green Bay, where you kind of saw flashes of it, but Rashawn Gary's still putting it together, but he's one of the better edge rushers in the league just based on raw power and explosion. I think that can be what Trevon Walker does in terms of just pure bull in a china shop, power, explosiveness, long arm, try and strike through the middle of the offensive lineman's chest. I hope that we see a little bit more as a pass rusher this year, just in terms of having a plan.
Yeah, it seemed like they seem to have him more in like a hybrid role last year. Like he was all over the field, and it's pass rush for fans. So like Aiden Hutchinson or whatever, they like idolize him. But that's all he's doing. You know what I mean? That's his bread and butter. That's day in, day out. He's a certified pass rusher or whatever. They were moving Trayvon everywhere, and there was plays where I was like, why are we 20 yards downfield and Trayvon's there? You know what I mean? So it was like, I just think like, if he gets in the like 8, 9, 10 range as far as like sacks goes or whatever, and everybody would quiet up about it, but then he's not in other key positions on the field. So I'm just like, I don't know, just let him do what he does, I guess. That's how I feel about it, at least. If we wanted a certified pass rusher, we could have picked up like Yannick or whatever, somebody like that with free agency. But I don't think that's like really. I know people are like talking about like, our pass rush is lacking, right? But it's like if the organization believed that, would they have picked up somebody in the free agency, or do they believe in the guys? And it looks like to me they believe in the guys, and I think we're going to see that in this upcoming season, especially with year 2 of Mike Caldwell. So yeah, I honestly believe that Trayvon's going to make that leap, and I think Josh Allen is going to earn his money too.
Yeah, I think Josh Allen is very quietly one of the better pass rushers in the NFL. I think his technique, his burst, for a guy that size is uncanny, but he just needs a consistent, he needs a consistent counterpart. I think the Jaguars believe in the guys that they have, but I do think there's still a few guys left on the market where they can bring in like a guy like Melvin Ingram, who could definitely help out this pass rush and allow them to be more versatile up front.
Do you think they make that move?
Every time I say they should make a move, they don't do it. So I'm going to say no, because like I said, I think they believe in the guys that they have. And of course, once DeJuan Smoot comes back, that changes the picture of the pass rush group a little bit.
So the guys from Jaguars today said that if they make a move, it most likely won't be until after week 1, because if the individual is on the roster week 1, their contract is guaranteed or whatever was guaranteed in it. Whereas if you sign them after the week 1 game, if you end up, after 6 games thinking this guy's not worth it and you cut him loose, you don't owe him any money after that. So they're saying it might be a money move where they're just waiting till the season comes along. But the problem is if you hold, sit on your hands, you might miss out. I mean, Ngakwe's already off the market, and but hey, maybe Chason finally makes that next step, and Walker adds tools, and Allen finally gets that 20 sack season. I don't know. We'll see. Any other thoughts on the defense? Slash special teams, if you want to talk about them.
Defensively, we talked about him a little bit, but Tyson Campbell is well on his way to another breakout year. Right. I think getting that 1 All-Pro vote made me really happy for him, because he played fantastic throughout the season, but he really didn't get a lot of recognition because the Jaguars' pass defense was very much, they were trying to figure out how to play the guys that they had, especially when they had Shaq Griffin, who was an outside corner, and Darius Williams, who was an outside corner. But I think they figured out the group, which is Darius Williams and Tyson Campbell on the outside, and then whoever you have in nickel is going to be the biggest question. That's going to be the biggest issue. They gotta find out the answer at nickel spot, because that's where a lot of people targeted the Jaguars last year. It was nickel.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully Antonio Johnson's there, in my opinion. I like the stuff that I've seen him do in college or whatever, especially to other SEC quarterbacks that went high up. Is insane and deserving of a second look if they don't put him there.
Have you heard of anybody potentially competing for Herndon's spot on the opposite side?
I haven't heard of it. I haven't heard anybody.
Okay.
But I do think it'll be interesting to see how that DB room shakes out. Of course, Rayshawn Jenkins and Andre Sisco are going to be the 2 starting safeties. And then Tyson Campbell, Darius Williams are going to be 2 starting outside corners. That leaves the nickel up for grabs. And, Trey Herndon is the vet. He's probably going to have the inside track, but I think they're really trying to address that spot.
Yeah, I think for the most part they've got all the starters figured out, and even potentially the second and third. but the one spot is Trey Herndon's spot where I think that might be, who knows, maybe Gregory Jr. steps up and takes that spot. I don't know. Well, great. That's offense, defense, and I think special teams is fine. But so we're now heading into the first preseason game against the Dallas Cowboys, who we were successful against this past season in a really epic overtime win. What are your thoughts? I've heard that the starters will be playing. I'm not sure entirely how much time they'll be playing, but we will see the starters out there. What are you wanting to? What are you looking for when you watch this game?
How many interceptions will Dak throw?
So the first thing that I want to look for is on the offensive side of the ball, what's going to be the first offensive line group? What's it going to look like? Right now, the unofficial depth chart going into the first preseason game is Walker Little at left tackle, Blake Hance, Luke Fortner, Brandon Sheriff, and Anton Harrison. That left guard spot is crucial. You got to figure out who's going to be the guy there, especially with Ben Barch out. But even when Ben Barch comes back, you got to figure out who's going to be a starter there. Blake Hance has made some really intriguing moments this training camp. So hopefully that's the guy there as a starter. But you got to figure out who's going to be that offensive line combination. You don't want to continue to keep moving guys around, especially if the notion is that Cam Robinson comes back in week 4 and he takes over the left guard spot. You don't want to reshuffle everything just because you're moving one guy back into the starting 5. The next thing I want to see is also offensive. I want to see how efficient they can be in the red zone. Of course, it's preseason. It's not going to be life or death, but you would like to see them not settle for field goals. You would like to see them move the ball. You'd like to see them get into the end zone. And that's one of the things that, like we said earlier, they struggled with last year with converting when you get into the red zone. So you want to see them be a little better in that area. Those are really the two things that I'm looking forward to, especially against a Dallas defense that, if they play their starters, is one of the best defenses in the entire league.
Yeah, so that puts Anton Harrison against Micah Parsons, or is that do I have that flick in my head?
They'll move Parsons around. They also have Marcus Lawrence. He'll see both of them probably if they play the starters.
That's a little
what a way to say welcome to the league.
Yeah, for real. Especially after he didn't get a lot of reps in training camp.
There's no better way to get acclimated to pass blocking, especially for a team like the Jaguars who want to make deep runs in the playoffs. You're going to have to face the best guys because the best teams have the best guys. So this is going to be a really fun matchup.
Yeah. Well, what about you, Cody? What are you looking for this game?
Interceptions. A bunch of them. Like our DB group is insane. So, yeah, like at least enough until Dak gets off the field. And then probably after that. So
is he even started? Do we know what the Cowboys are doing? Are they starting their starters?
Who knows?
I mean,
yeah, I haven't looked yet. I wouldn't be surprised if they kept Dak off, but just to keep them from getting humiliated again. But okay. Any other thoughts for this upcoming game?
I think defensively, looking at the depth chart now, it looks like Antonio Johnson is the third safety behind Cisco and Daniel Thomas. So we'll see how that nickel spot shakes out. Like you mentioned, Gregory Jr. is a backup behind Trey Herndon. Mm-hmm. How we see that shake out will be very interesting, especially if the Cowboys start their starters. It should be interesting to see how the snap counts get allotted.
I'll be interested to see. For me personally, we know what we have with Travis Etienne. I kind of want to see what we got in Johnson and Bixby. I really want to see them game speed. I really don't want to see a whole lot of Snoop Connor out there this preseason, except for maybe the last game, just because I feel like Snoop Connor, he's not going to be on the team come week 1. And so let him do his little audition for the rest of the league in week 3. I really want to see a lot of Johnson and Bixby this weekend, and maybe see what they might do with Jamal Agnew, but maybe they don't want to give their hand just yet. I'm
also excited with Kevin Austin. I think Kevin Austin has made a lot of big plays at receiver in training camp, and he's listed right now as a backup behind Calvin Ridley. Of course, it's receivers. You can line up anybody anywhere, but I want to see how Kevin Austin plays against somebody that's not wearing the same helmet as him. So that should be really fun too.
Yeah, there's a lot of we are spoiled at the wide receiver position, which is something we haven't, like you said, we haven't said that since ever, really.
It's been a good minute.
Yeah, last year we went to last year we went to the third down, fourth down situations, and this year I feel like with the group that we got or whatever, those are going to feel a little less like butterflies. I think like we hit third down situations, and that's what we'll be looking forward to in the preseason game. Like how easily we convert those, or if we even get in them, to be honest. So that's gonna be fun to watch.
So we'll finish it out. What's your prediction for this weekend? I know it doesn't mean anything, and I know that Joe nobody will be playing, but who do you think is going to win?
I think the Jaguars win. Of course, it's preseason. I think the Jaguars have a lot of talent at the skill positions that I'm really intrigued to see. And I think that talent at the skill positions and that depth will be able to show in the second half.
Nice. I agree. It's so crazy to see, like, we have players past that first string. Like, it's just crazy to think that we have depth. And like you said, I think with that depth, we're going to walk away with a win. What about you, Cody?
Yeah, man. I think it should be an easy win for the Jags. Let's just say that. In the depth, I'm excited to see, at each position what we got going on. So I'll say Jags by 50.
Jags by 50. Oh no, my internet cut out. Sorry guys, I think my internet cut out. Okay, well, cool. So we'll go ahead and close it out. We really appreciate you joining us, JP. Where can everyone find you?
You can find me on Twitter or X or whatever they call it at Acosta32_JP. Like you introduced me earlier, I am a writer at SB Nation covering college football, professional football, anywhere where there's football, I will probably be there. And check out my columns starting every Friday during the regular season called Establish the Fun, where we talk about all the fun things that are happening in football, especially on the field and all the schematics, because football is fun, and I like to establish that.
Yeah, for sure.
Can you kind of give us a glimpse of what kind of fun things you'd be talking about?
So I guess to give it a little general excitement, I'm excited to see what the Bears offense looks like this year, especially in the vertical displacement of the run game and the vertical aspect of the passing game. I'm very, very intrigued by what the Ravens offense looks like now with Todd Monken as offensive coordinator and how their personnel kind of fits what they have. I think there's going to be a lot less Pat Ricard snaps. And then Jim Schwartz being back in the NFL with the Browns, that defense could potentially be very fun with Myles Garrett almost putting together a DPOY campaign last year without much help. But now you go out and get him to Darius Smith. I'm excited to see what it looks like.
I get so stuck in the Jaguars bubble, I forget about all these fun storylines like you're talking about, like, the Chicago Bears running out of running back at quarterback, and the Baltimore Ravens finally giving Lamar Jackson some legit weapons around him to succeed. So,
and Drew Lock rapping a whole Jeezy verse on the sidelines.
So that's a lot of fun. Well, again, I appreciate you coming on, JP. It's been a lot of fun. I'll be sure to check out all of your stories. And again, everybody, you can find him at SB Nation. He's a writer there. And Cody, where can we find you?
At Cody Cole Gaming on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. Shout out to Jaguars Let's Go, the Facebook group. They let us stream there. So that's dope.
And you can find me at Matthew G Sports on Twitter. But as always, you can find us at fanbattlesports.com. There you'll find content for every team in the AFC South Division, as well as we just rolled out the Texas Longhorns Network fan battle. I'm not sure exactly what they call it, but they talk about the Texas Longhorns. And there's plenty of content that you can read over there about the AFC South, and it's a lot of fun, a lot of good guys, even though they're wrong, because we are the champs. So appreciate you guys joining us, and we will see you next time.